Pasha Paroh. All right. Look. Thanks for coming out, right? I appreciate that. I don't know how long we have, so let's look at this, right? You know how you be telling people stuff months, years in advance. And even when you told them, right, you didn't see the manifestation to be as large as you first as it truly became in reality. So that had me thinking, because we've been talking a lot about like spells lately. It's coming up on what some would call Halloween, and we just did the video on evoking and invoking. The power of words is coming to you soon. Conversations from the School of the Hard Knocks. Trish McCabe, Pasha Paroh. Look for it. So it got me thinking, right? As I was reading this article, speaking more about the congestion of the seaports, like the trading ports, right? And I thought about how what we focus on, we attract. And when it's cool, or people do things normatively, socially influenced, and they give stuff energy that otherwise wouldn't be a thing, right? So look at you heard the saying, monkey see, monkey do. You got small people, and I don't mean like they not doing a thing in life. I mean in comparison to the government of what you think is the government of a country or a nation. And they see this government put sanctions on this country and how it hurts that country. And they see how all the other people, then they go and gaslight other countries into jumping on the bandwagon of sanctioning, which is basically a fancy way of saying blackballed, which is basically a more elaborate way of saying canceled for some agenda, right? It's always for some agenda. You don't go through the effort of canceling somebody unless there's an agenda. And it made me think, what's the word cancel mean, right? And I got my, I still ain't tape it up yet. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna tape it up. The tape's right there too. I got it. The tape has made it to the area. We're talking about supply chain delays. So from the drawer it was stored in, there was the supply chain is affected that as well. The delay. It didn't move over here. Transportation was down. All right. So cancel means to cross out or strike with lines. Originally, $13.99. Right? Cross out or to strike with lines. And the reason why the connection came about is because now they're also circulating news or information or publications, right? Showcasing how the supply chain is causing items to not be in stock, supplies to not be available, up and down the list, whether it's business related, pantry related, etc. Right? And it got me thinking about this stuff, being Pasha means high ranking general political, figure from Ottoman Empire. Song just dropped October 6th. Shout out to everybody grabbing it off iTunes, Spotify, streams, all that stuff. iHeart Radio. So check it out though. It actually we gotta go look at the words. We gotta go look at siege. Okay, I'm gonna start you off here. So the word siege actually was. Let me get myself together here. So besiege redirects from here, but a siege is a military blockade. It says of a city or fortress with the intent of conquering by attrition. If I said that right. Attrition warfare is a military strategy consisting of belligerent attempts to win a war by wearing down the enemy to the point of collapse through continuous losses in personnel and material. All right, so the word attrition comes from the Latin root word atterere, to rub against, similar to grinding down, right? All right. So when you get into studying the siege techniques of the Romans, you could cut off the supplies entering the city if you circled it, right? If you circled the city, you could cut off the supplies coming in and out because they would never reach it. Then you wait for the city, and even though it had castle walls around it, you didn't have to fight and go over there over the walls. Cut off all the supplies going to it. Eventually, they run out of supplies on the inside, and they implode on themselves, and eventually have to come out, right? So, I think what was going on, like, first of all, what we got to do is we got to stop, like, denouncing people that are thinking ahead. Okay? Because a lot of this stuff, when we look at the conditions, the climates of what's going on right now, you got to understand that there were people 10 years ago at the top of their lungs saying, we need to do something because this is going to happen if we don't. But as long as the good times seem to still be rolling through, as long as there was something that you could laugh at on TV, as long as there was some place you could go and get a drink, whatever it is for you or those people even. Because I know a lot of the viewers here at YNet7, I know a lot of y'all feel the same way. Y'all looking at other people. So we got to be able to explain the value to them. And that's why the emotional experiences you get here at YNet7 are so valuable to you, because it helps refine that process, because we know ourselves, but we got to go beyond ourselves and look at their perspective, what it actually means to them, so that we can connect. Because they didn't spend the last 5 or 10 years studying this stuff to see it developing the way that we do. That doesn't mean that they're not a critical or valuable component to the process. The trick is, how do you get them to realize that about themselves? So let's get back to this here. I got a little roadmap. What you talking about, Pasha? I remember saying to people, why are we selling the ports? Why? Not necessarily we. You guys know who we are. You know what I mean? And as a whole, we're wondering why more people didn't see something wrong with this. It's something that you've heard recurring theme on YNET 7 is, why do we wait for the emergency to occur, the panic to happen, and celebrate the people who step up in the panic, which really, when you look at it, it's just a survival, right? Instead of celebrating, or equally, if not more, the people that come with the solutions well in advance of the problems to prevent it. This is another example of the normative social influence disconnect. So this article was written back in 2006. All right. Most U.S. port terminals are foreign run. Critics of the Dubai Ports World deal have suggested that U.S. ports should be run by U.S. companies. But the vast majority of the port terminals are leased and run by foreign companies, and that's unlikely to change. We can move into this article from HuffPost. It was updated back in 2011. Why are many, originally back from 2006 as well, why are any U.S. ports owned or operated by foreign corporations or governments? Powerful questions. See, I'm gonna tell you why this stood out to me, because I was like, surveying the situation on the situational map. I was really looking at the defensive posture of America in relation to invasions. And I saw Mexico as an entry point if there was to be an invasion in the country, for your entertainment purposes only, right? We out here, ain't nothing going on. So this actually seemed like the wall would be the solution, not to stop an advancing army, but to at least slow it down to buy a response, right? Now, why would you even still have that open? You know what I mean? If you're so concerned about certain things making an impact here, why would those vulnerability points be open? Because when you get into it, right, China actually owns, is heavily invested. Okay? And this is the Naval War College Review. See, it's from 2021, right? Research and debate, peer competitor, testimony on China's global ports. Okay? We mentioned it here on YNET 7 a while back that they were buying up a lot of the world ports. And I've been talking about this stuff, well before I got online with it. But let's look now with this, what is it called? Testimony on China's global ports by Isaac Carden, the U.S. Naval War College, because when I said it, people laughed. Some people laugh. I'm just playing. But when I want to see how Isaac Carden put it, so I can see, what's there to be learned but from it? Now, I read through this earlier, and I want to go over it with you. All right, let me set this over here. I'm still getting used to this. Bear with me. All right, that'll work. All right, so research and debate, testimony on China's global ports. The United States China Economic and Security Review Commission convened a day-long hearing on the global power projection capabilities of the People's Liberation Army, the PLA, on the 20th February 2020. Okay, what follows is a version of the testimony, right, of the testimony with which the author responded to the commission's questions on Chinese bases and access points, drawing on an original data set of the 95 overseas port terminals that Chinese firms, primarily 3 entities, 2 of which are central state-owned enterprises operate, or both. So the central state-owned, it's the communist government of China. Like it actually goes up to the hierarchy to be owned by either them or like one of their sitting members in one of those very high places, one of their pashas, right? So these facilities are concentrated in the Indian Ocean and the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. Now, it says concentrated. They own 95 of them or something, right? So don't let that fool you, because I even see that as here's what I'm getting at. All right. The reason I started off showing you siege is because wars don't always have to drop bombs. And a lot of you guys are wondering about the supply chain right now. Well, if you listen to the people a lot of people are wondering about the supply chain right now and all the boats off the shores, cargo ships that are just, why is this delay happening? What's going on? What's the solution? And more importantly, what's going to happen if this doesn't get resolved? Right? This is where you have to say, damn, if we listen to the people that we made fun of 10 years ago, we could have done something about this. All right. So if you feel like you have to get a jab because something that started in China, and then you're going to say that they're weaponized it, possibly, why would any of this still be going on? Right? And I'm not saying, what I'm saying is why. All right, so let's get to this. What are the possible outcomes that could be unfavorable? Right? All right, so look, check this out. Some of the terminals in this expanding commercial network may serve dual-use functions as strategic strong points for the PLA to sustain overseas military operations of increasing complexity and duration. This strong point model is not suited for supporting high-end combat. Rather, it is optimized for peacetime logistics and intelligence collection. Domestically, efforts are underway to achieve greater military civilian fusion, such that PLA forces can use terminals operated by Chinese firms more readily. Internationally, the PLA Navy also known as the Plan, engages in military diplomacy that advances the political relationships between China and host countries, including by conducting port calls at facilities owned and operated by Chinese firms. The testimony concludes with analysis of Chinese firms' terminals in the U.S. and several recommendations for U.S. policymakers to understand and mitigate security risks from China's overseas port expansion. Where and how is China securing bases and other access points to facilitate its expeditionary capabilities? The PLA's air and sea lift capabilities remain insufficient to supply and sustain complex military operations, so they say, right? We right here. But beyond the range of the mainland logistics networks. Yet, with the notable exception of the sole military support base in Djibouti, these limited vessels and aircraft are the PLA's only organic mode of strategic delivery to project military power overseas. Lacking a network of overseas bases, the PLA must rely on a variety of commercial access points to operate beyond the first island chain. Because the Plan is the service branch to which virtually all these missions fall, this testimony focuses on port facilities. The Plan depends on commercial ports to support its growing operations overseas. Over the course of deploying 35 escort task forces since 2008 to perform an anti-piracy mission in the Gulf of Aden, the Plan has developed a pattern of procuring commercial husbanding services for fuel and supplies at hundreds of ports across the globe. All navies that operate abroad rely to some degree on such routine commercial arrangements. This distinctive, think about that. I mean, did you look right here? All navies, hold on, let me back it up. Over the course of deploying 35 escort task forces since 2008 to perform anti-piracy mission in the Gulf of Aden, right? The Plan has developed a pattern of procuring commercial husbanding services for fuel and supplies at hundreds of ports and around the globe. So they run the gas tanks and all the supplies at a lot of the ports around the world. You can't sail a boat too far for too long without needing some supplies, which means not that you can't return home with this like nuclear power stuff and everything, but that takes you out of if the ship for the Navy, because it's saying all navies that operate abroad rely to some degree on such routine commercial arrangements. That means that if they pull the plug on that tomorrow, you're where you would have only had to go this far to get supplies, you now got to go all the way back around the world to where you came from. Kind of changes the logistics of anything, right? So the distinctive aspect of the Plan's efforts to support a growth. Now you're starting to see why I started this off with siege from the classic Roman era. So they say that when they call the Romans whoever they really were, right? So it's access. Let me start over. The distinctive aspect of the Plan's efforts to support a growing overseas presence, however, is its access to a large and growing number of ports, partly owned and operated by People's Republic of China, PRC firms. PLA officers and Chinese analysts tout a variety of possible dual-use functions at these ports, which in some cases are dubbed China's overseas strategic strong points. How does the Plan use these facilities? Right? Where are the facilities located? Who owns and operates them? And what, if any, military purposes, right, are do they serve? After summarizing the pattern of commercial activity, we will turn to the potential dual-use functions of the Chinese-owned and operated ports and the prospects for securing actual military bases. China's global portfolio or port portfolio, right? So since the late 1990s, a handful of Chinese firms have seized considerable market share as international terminal operators, right? They have leveraged capital and expertise drawn from the extraordinary scale of China's own domestic port industry, which boasts 31 of the world's top 50 ports by total cargo tonnage, and 7 of the top 10 highest throughput container ports to expand overseas, right? So as of July 2020, PRC confirms partly owned and or operated some 95 ports across the globe. Now, it continues and it says at a far larger number of ports, on the order of hundreds, Chinese firms have built port works, upgraded equipment, right, or dredged harbors. Now, in reality, you know, looking at it from a status point of war, I mean, it would be at a huge disadvantage to have these people doing this stuff because, shit, while they were down there, they could have planted all kinds of bombs, nuke, whatever. They could have brought whatever they wanted over there, right? Not only do they run the ports and own the ports in some cases, but they're doing this type of work there. They're in control of everything that flows through it. You see the potential, right? All right, let's get back to it for your entertainment purposes. However, such contracted projects do not leave a Chinese firm. Basically, it's going to say here that in those projects like the port building and the upgrade equipment and dredging harbors, that the contracts don't mean that they're going to run the facilities. They may have just did the work and left, right? So then the next paragraph goes in and say, ownership is a major factor of unblocking dual use potential. So the ones they own, they got all this extra excess, and then they got all this other stuff they could be doing, which looks normal, and you never know what's what. Now, you see why I brought up the word siege in the beginning. And I just gave you the normal form of Wikipedia look at it. We didn't even go to the etymology on it, right? This is starting to come together now. So of 95 Chinese operated owned ports abroad, central state owned enterprises have operational roles, ownership stakes, or both in 52 of them. So that's more than 50%. And 8 involve local SOEs, but no central SOE. In 35 of the Chinese operated owned overseas ports, private firms have ownership stakes or operational roles, and no SOEs are present, right? So 35 additional ones, they still got the tentacles in. So a Chinese firm is the majority shareholder in at least one terminal at 56 ports and 100% shareholder in 23 of those. Of China's seaports operations, 81% are accounted for by 3 Chinese firms. And it names them here and tells you this, that, and the other about them. Right? And then gives you some more information about who they are and what amount of stuff they have. But collectively they hold 81% of the ports are held by 3 companies in China. So the where, and it connects some of them to like their positions and the ownership of them to like even government members in China. So like you have basically the government of China running the port terminal or terminals in not only the United States or America, but these other high volume ports around the world as well, right? So what that means is, and I know what you're thinking, like I ain't gonna say I know what you're thinking, but consider this. That means that even if you control all these other ports and they all got destinations going to the United States, you could literally set it up so that you delay this one, put this one ahead, push that one up, move this one around, delay that one, move this one, and then all these ships, boom, arrive at the same time, knowing the capacity, because you got intel from it, so you know what their capacity is. So as long as you continue to swamp the system, it won't operate functionally, which then that's one way you could do it. And that's not even saying you're utilizing your access to that you control the actual receiving ports, just the ports that's sending them around the world. Now you factor in that you actually control terminals and ports on the receiving end. You can cut manpower, you can delay this, you can do that, you can do all this stuff to even further the impact on the receiving side. Not to mention all of the stuff you can get through, that you want to move through unnoticed because of it. You got all the control of it. At some point, you got the ability to bypass shit, right? So that's the defensive. It could be 10,000 missiles already here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, like, it's not to scare anybody. It's not to create fear. It's to create awareness of poor choices. And it's to create awareness for stop attacking people that come to you with ideas and label them like conspiracy theorists and label them this and that, and maybe start looking at how the community can prepare for these things. Like I see posts. I know you see posts that are like, life is too short. Basically have fun, party, this, that, and the other. What are we leaving behind? Today they're buying the ports. Tomorrow, what's left of America by the time your sons and daughters are your age? Or is there even an America left? Or was that Instagram pic on the weekend every couple weeks, whatever it was, more important to you than working on changing the mentality and the destination of this nation? How many of us have had the conversation saying, hey, look, we need to spend $2, $3, $4, $5 more dollars when we want something to get it from the person that lives around the corner from us, instead of going across the world to find the cheapest and getting the lowest quality because we're worried about cost and price. Because that implodes the infrastructure. Now, because you didn't feed that person that had it right next door to you, eventually they go out of business, right? Then soon as you can't import it from your around the world low quality anymore, you go out of business. Now there are no more businesses. Why? Because when we talk about sustainability, you didn't want to spend an extra $5 to make sure we could maintain and sustain shit. That person's emotional attachment in the moment was the satisfaction of cheap. Or we're gonna cancel this person, which means now that manipulates the market. We want to boycott this group, this company, so there's only these two left. Then when they all raise the prices on you like, well, you gave them a monopoly and you thought that they were going to, not take advantage of it. And they said, thank you, because you don't know how to control emotions. not you, but because people don't know how to control emotions. I'm talking to you. You know how it goes. So I'm like you. You know, I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. Okay, all right. Worried about the emotions of people, how they're gonna take what I'm saying. This is the truth. Work with me here. All right, so this is what I'm getting at, and then the problem is, or the opportunity rather, is that now it'll be like, oh, you know, whoever steps up and gives some little band-aid ass idea in the middle of the panic, right, is gonna be seen as some sort of let's vote for them next elections and shit. When you had people in your own community telling you guys, let's do something about this 10 years ago, and you still here. We're still here with it. You know what I'm saying? That's what's causing the divide in that arena. That's right there. So let's get back to this reading here. All right. What I wanted to showcase to you is these are the ports they're talking about. These dots. Put up here a little high so you can see it. So these dots on the map are the ports that they talking about. All right. Now, look here. You got Seattle, Oakland, at one point, LA, right, on the West Coast. This, don't quote me. They got one in Houston. They got some they own in Houston and Louisiana, right? You can see some stuff down here on the tip of Florida and up in Canada. Numerous amounts in Mexico. And again, my concern always was they could hide whatever they wanted to in Mexico. My biggest concern prior to the present was when Russia and China was talking about, you know, getting away from the dollar. And to do that, you already know what you got to do. So, or you know how the world powers are going to respond because you know how they feel about their petrodollar. All right? I know who I'm talking to here. You guys already know this stuff. So that was a pretty tense moment while a lot of people were just playing and, you know, living their life because to them, you know, today is all there is to think about. And that may be true to a degree. And for the rest of us that have a radar, this is what was going on. So being as though they have access to 3 ports in Mexico, it could be anything, any army in its entirety, in complete utter, right? I learned that utter meant totally and complete, total and complete. There's as an adjective. So any utter of an army, right, could be in Mexico right now, waiting for an order, and you wouldn't know it. Then at the same time, they got control of the ports in LA, Seattle. So if there was to be an invasion, the West Coast, it would be like the battle for Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. So, all right, let's go. Let's keep going here. I have a couple more things to show you. And so China now, right, October 8th, that's like today for us, right? China urges U.S. to abide by the deal to keep troops out of Taiwan. Why? Because what are they doing? What have they been doing for the last weeks or months? Is they're flying jets over Taiwan because they want to reclaim it, or quote unquote reclaim it as Chinese territory, which, you know, Taiwan is a big part of U.S. industry. And this comes shortly after they just did their reversal of Hong Kong and all that stuff that's going on over there. All right? Like, this all actually is in, you know, it's in the song. It's in the song So So. You know, back from early 2018. Everything from the jets flying over to the needles, the jabs, the pandemics is mentioned.
Don't it all end in heartbreak. Everything that we love. Pandemic,
It ain't on the shelf no more.
Rewards are stronger drugs, so I ain't even gotta get away. I'm already gone, and I don't know if there's still time left to defuse this bomb.
So look at what could have been done, right? Look at what could have been done if we had worked together. This is how important. This is an example of why it's so important to be in control of your own emotions, so you can control your own mental. Mental, the word is psycho. And I thought it was ironic that the movie was called American Psycho. Like American mentality, right? American mental. I kind of want to like use that name now. Pasha Paroh, American Psycho. You know, because this is the American mentality that we need to address. America needs to make America. The United States isn't going to do it for you. Europe's not going to do it for you. China has the world surrounded. Literally. And the only way to resolve or prevent that issue is to have all the industry in America that services America so that America could be self-sustained. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I'm Pasha Paroh. Thank you for tuning. The replay. And if you want to do your part, start a business, and let's build up the small business sector. If you need logos, graphic designs, anything like that, just shoot me an email at pashaparoh@gmail.com, and let's talk about your project. Because this is why we have to invest in each other. This is why we have to get out of the cheap and enjoy the expense. Peace.